We've asked Andrea Freeman from the Massachusetts Public Health Association to come and talk to us during election season here about advocacy and lobbying. What's the difference? What can you do? What can't you do? And I think at the end she's going to tell you what you should do.
Okay, so my name's Andrea, not Amanda, not to be confused with Amanda, and I don't have any great swag to share with everybody other than the handout and hopefully some encouragement and some enthusiasm for making a difference in policy systems and environmental change in our state. I know it's a crazy kind of political time these years, and most recently, and I know a lot of folks are just saying, I want nothing to do, I hate politics, I hate politics. I'm going to confess something. I love politics.
I know.
Thank you. Okay, so hopefully we're making some friends here. Because I think I grew up with an understanding of politics as being, this is how you decide. You know, it's what else are we going to do if, without civil discussion, without debate, without talking about it? How else do we decide who gets what and how much and when, and how do we divide our toys and how do we share? It's resource allocation. So maybe the process and the nuts and bolts, some of it gets really kind of icky, but if you back up, 30,000 feet, politics is deciding, it's deciding who gets to decide. It's deciding who gets access to the good stuff and minimize from the bad stuff, right? And so that's why, so I've always been involved in mission-driven, socially progressive issues. And so to me, politics advocating for the underserved, people who are underserved, people who don't have a voice, people who didn't know they could have a voice and then do find a voice, that's why I love politics, and I hope to give you a little enthusiasm to not fully check out and to start kind of making a habit, if you don't already have one, of as an individual, as an organization, of your CHNA, of where you may work, to make it kind of a habit to be involved at least a little bit on a regular basis. We're going to talk about how you can do that. And so, Michael, thank you so much for being our valet here today. So, okay, the why, a little bit more on the why of advocacy and lobbying is also, it's the idea that our elected officials, and I'm really going to just talk about state level issues because that's where Mass Association of Public Health, Mass Public Health Association, MPHA, that's where we work, really at the state level and sometimes the local level. And then the state level, anybody know how many bills get filed a year in the state legislature? Anybody want to take a guess like we did with the, how many? 6,000. There's, okay, he's too close. We're going to shut down the bidding right now. We have a ringer in the audience, people. He's heard my talk before. And he knows. David is wonderfully.
How many get filed?
Wendy and David and Dave have been amazing partners. And I know Christine with Greater Lowell Health Alliance, there's a lot of great partners here who have been hugely involved. So between 6,000 and 7,000 bills every 2 years. We have a 2-year legislative session. Every two years, about 7,000 bills get introduced. How many? And there's about 2 weeks from when they're all introduced to when our senators and representatives have to maybe co-sponsor it. Say, hey, that's a really good idea. I want to hitch my wagon to what you wrote. So do you really think that they can read or even glance at 7,000? They can't. There's no way. And so they really rely on us, their constituents, their advocacy organizations they trust and rely on. They rely on us as eyes and ears to help them and their aides, their staff who are really important people too. They rely on us to highlight what needs to be looked at. Like, you're going to want to see this one. You're going to want to get behind this one or not. So we're their eyes and ears. And like I said before, it's who gets to know, who gets to play, who gets to be involved with. Even the budget is considered just one piece of legislation, the annual operating budget. But that is that's one of the biggest public policy issues you could ever be involved in. It comes around every year. I mean, let's just think about, the holiday. When the holidays come, start worrying about the budget too, because the governor's has to come out with his version in January. The House starts debating theirs and does it in February, March, and the Senate does it in March and April, and then so I mean, once the holidays are over, but it's by the time the governor's writing his in January, you need to have connection with him before he's writing it. Because you know what it's like. Once you've already made something, you're like, I'm not going to go in and fiddle with it. You have your chance. We'll deal with it next year. So timing matters. But also, like I said, advocacy and lobbying, having input, is going to make sure that we're not using like arm wrestling or something to make decisions about who gets what on each program. And let's not forget the hugely important impacts, the positive impacts that advocacy has had on public health over the past years and decades and generations. We're talking about the no smoking laws, the seatbelt laws, the vaccines and immunizations, the more recent ones, some of the funding for complete streets. We haven't seen the impacts of it yet, but these are generational policy and systems changes. So some of it means money being shifted to go to things that we realize need the focus. Other times they're policy, like the seatbelts, that didn't cost a huge amount of money to do, but it was a change in a system for different states and across the country. And I want to point out, advocacy and lobbying do not mean the same things. Often they get used interchangeably. It's not, you don't need to be word police or anything, but they are very different things. We'll go into what's the difference. And then also, lobbying is not evil. It has a background, just like the word, power. That's not an evil word. It is important to have power to be able to have influence, right? So we all have power in different ways. We have power individually, collectively. These are not dirty words. And so I'm just trying to warm you up here to say, don't be scared of lobbying. Don't be scared of power. Okay, let's click ahead. So what exactly is lobbying? There's 3 ingredients so direct lobbying is what I think we all kind of think about when, he's a lobbyist or she's a lobbyist or something, or my organization doesn't lobby. And some do, some don't. But to what actually counts as lobbying, there's 3 key ingredients, and you have to have all of them. You cannot bake the lobbying cake without these 3 ingredients. One, there needs to be a communication with an elected official or one of their staffers or their aides.
Is that direct communication?
For direct. Oh, no, good point. Communication with it could be emailing, it could be talking directly face-to-face, talking on the phone. Thank you, yes, so a communication with an elected person, an elected official, or their staff. Second key ingredient is that you're talking about a piece of legislation. It could be the budget, it could be bill number H122 or Senate 175 or something like that. It also, the specific legislation, it also applies to if it's like in the process of being written. So maybe it doesn't have a bill number yet, like before going into legislative sessions, but it's being conceptualized, kind of like leading to, when somebody says, we're working on legislation for this, we don't have a bill number yet. So that counts as legislation too. Okay, so got the official, got the legislation, and then you have to express an opinion on that in order for that to be lobbying. So what happens if you invite your state senator to, say, a ribbon cutting of the CHNA new rail trail in Fall River? You invite them to come help cut the ribbon and have a little celebration remarks and photos and stuff. Is that lobbying? Why not?
It's part of their duties.
It's not part of their duties. It's good for them to do because they get FaceTime and they get photo ops, but why is it not lobbying? You invite them to...
You're not asking them something specific.
You're not asking them something specific, and you're not sharing a specific request or sharing your opinion on that. Okay, so what if you, does that make any questions about that? Inviting an elected official to come to an event is not lobbying?
You can thank them for having done something.
Yes, you can. It is that lobbying. If you send an email or a thank you note for saying thank you for supporting us on this bill, is that lobbying?
No, they've already done it.
Exactly. Right. Yeah. So that's not lobbying. That's actually really thoughtful and a really good idea. Was what that is. What about if your CHNA, your board of your CHNA, you decide, what, I was just at this workshop and I learned a lot of good information, some good facts about problem gambling from this awesome woman named Amanda. And we want to raise awareness, we want to put something in our weekly paper or in our daily paper, and we're going to sign it by the CHNA to let folks know where they can get information, all this information about gambling. And we've got, ballot initiative about gambling coming up and stuff like that. Is that lobbying? If the CHNA board agrees to sign on that?
So there's a specific bill, right? And then ask people.
But if you're just sharing information, like we just heard information from Amanda, here's where you can get help if you know a problem gambler, you think you are. Correct, exactly. Okay, so what about if I call you up and I say, hey, we really need somebody from Needham to testify at the State House about the Mass Food Trust. We want somebody from Needham because you're Milford, because one of your state rep is a key person on Ways and Means Committee. And you say, sure, I'll come do that. Is that lobbying?
Yeah.
Exactly, yeah, exactly. So for the direct lobbying, you need to keep thinking about the specific ingredients. And even if it says you say yes to one, you have to have all three.
That's not lobbying?
Oh, the last one definitely is. Because you're coming to testify to, so the question is, who am I testifying to, right? You're testifying to elected officials. We would be asking you to speak to a specific piece of legislation, and we're asking you to support, we would be asking you to support that, speak to your support for that legislation.
So if you invite a legislator to your CHNA meeting to speak about a specific legislation, but you do not take a stand on it.
Because you want to hear what the legislator has to
Right.
say about it?
Even if he is identified as believing a certain way, it's still your opinion that has to be that third ingredient?
Exactly,
Okay.
exactly. You can invite an elected official to come and share information with you, with your members, with your committee. That is, that's like a gift. That's a package on the porch for them to say, hey, we want you, we're going to have a pre-assembled group of people who are your constituents for you to come talk to about an issue that you care about and we think you know something about that we care about. I mean, that's like that's a beautiful thing for that elected official. But as long as you're not saying, okay, now that you've told us about it, we want you to do either support his or her opinion, or maybe you're opposed to his or her opinion. It's not lobbying until that third ingredient comes in. Does it make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. So grassroots lobbying is a little different. That's more about when it's pretty much the same ingredients, and it's the idea of not just affecting you and what you do or your organization, but trying to get other people. So again, if you're CHNA, so say you've got 10 people who are active CHNA members, or 10 people that are part of your steering committee or your board. You say, okay, we all know we're going to go out and we're going to contact our state senator and ask her to do this, but we don't, 10 may not be enough, or actually, I'm not actually her constituent, or I don't live there. We want to find another 20 people that can do this as well. So that's where that starts to becoming into grassroots lobbying. And it's that same idea that there has to be a communication to other people, whether that's email, whether that's at a rally, or that's at a flyer that you hand out with all the information, expressing a specific view about a specific piece of legislation, and then an actual call to action. So please call your senator by this time about it, ask her to support this. I used to work for a conservation organization that was really they really did not want to do the lobbying thing, but they were really happy to get as close to it as possible. Which is what a lot of groups do. And so when there was sometimes there would be a public hearing about a land use issue that the conservation organization, we really want that farm protected, or we really want that watershed protected. So they would pull up the addresses of the members, and either mail or email them saying, a Tuesday evening at 6 o'clock at the middle school, there's going to be a hearing about the Jones farm and whether or not a subdivision can go through. Wanted to make sure you knew about it. But we're sending it to people paid members, people who we know care about conservation. We know how they're going to feel about it. We never made a call to action. We provided information and context and timing. And so was that grassroots lobbying? Does it seem kind of cheesy now?
It is a little sleazy, right?
But it's not, I mean, nonprofit, I mean, advocacy, yeah. Any other thoughts on it? Because I don't mean to encourage anybody to do something you think is sneaky or sleazy or opposed to the, the spirit of the law. I mean, they get, the definition is clear from the state and federal government of what counts as lobbying. And it's like, we're following the recipe, we're doing what you told us.
You haven't really told the people your opinion on it, right?
Exactly.
You ask them to go to the meeting, you think you know their opinion on it, so when they get there, they can make their own decision.
But even if you did give your opinion, you're still okay as long as you're not telling them or suggesting that they do something.
Yeah.
I mean, you could be informing and saying, if you want more information, go to this website.
Right.
You want more information, here's a handout,
Right. Right. And if you're worried about even sharing your opinion, you could just, instead of saying, we're concerned about this, this farm being subdivided, you just say, there's a public meeting about the Jones farm on this day and this location. And then it's one thing if you spread, flyers generically all over town, and you end up letting everybody know. So maybe you get some people there that want it subdivided and some who don't. But anyways, that's. But if you target it, to your people, but if you target it to the people that support that.
I mean, are there groups that are not allowed and there are rules, specific rules, who's allowed, who isn't allowed to do it?
So, so yes, and that's why. So 501c3, most nonprofits that are incorporated as a 501c3 organization. You guys anybody here know if they're a 501c3? Okay, that is an IRS, a federal IRS category to be tax exempt. So that meaning that when somebody makes a donation to you, they're perfectly allowed to deduct that because from their income taxes because it's going to a charitable organization. And a charitable organization is one that does it provides public benefit. Public benefit can come in many forms. It comes in the form of education. It comes in the form of suicide prevention, helping people find homes. Churches are 501c3, temples, mosques, environmental groups, protecting watersheds, things like that. Those are all public goods. And so if you're providing a public good to help the community, the government wants to say, okay, we want to incentivize people to donate money, they get a discount on their taxes. At the same time, the government is saying, incentivizing this. At the same time, they're also saying, well, if you're getting this benefit for the money coming in, there's some limits to what you can do. And one of those limits is how much you can do lobbying. You may, and you're perfectly legitimate to do some, but not too much. And so how do you know how much is...
So what does that mean?
Okay.
Not too much.
And this is where it starts to get a little confusing because since that kind of definition came around in the 1970s, the insubstantial, like 501c3 organizations may lobby in an amount that's insignificant, insubstantial to the overall work of their organization.
And it's part of a coalition, as most of the CHNAs are, and they do these things through the CHNA, which are not 501c3 as a coalition.
Right. Right. So then okay, that's an excellent question. So the idea that say you work for who's your employer that you?
Oh, Paid Senior Services.
Okay.
Technically, it's a program of the church, so we're not even our own individual 501c3.
But the church is your fiscal agent.
Yes.
So the board of that church is the one that's got fiscal and legal responsibility for whatever you do. And so your time to go to the CHNA meetings and participate and gather information and express an opinion, would you say you spend 90% of your time doing that?
No,
Right? Would you say maybe 2% of your time? 20?
There's a range, not 20, and there's a lot. But we belong to a lot of coalitions, so there's a lot of,
Okay.
yeah.
So the insubstantial, so it goes back to who, you're going to always have to follow the money. It goes back to who pays your salary and whose time are you on when you're doing this. As long as it's an insignificant amount of the organization. So like, if you're an organization that's got a $500,000 operating budget, kind of the rule of thumb is no more than 5% of your operating budget. And this is just a rule, this is a rule of thumb, there's no hardcore laws on this because it starts to get in the murky, it starts to get into a confusing area that involves the IRS. But if you're under 5% of your operating budget, there's, go ahead to the next slide because we could, it's a rabbit hole once you start asking some of these questions because 501c3 can do it an insubstantial amount around this under 5% of your operating budget and what counts to that in terms of staff time and number of photocopies you make and things like that. Most organizations I've worked with over the past 25 years don't even come close to it because it's advocacy and lobbying is not at their core function. They just do it as a side because there's a policy that is just, you know, either so bad or could be so good that you do a little bit of it here and there at key times, but it's not the core. And the other way is that if you really are, if advocacy is at the core of your organization, then the IRS several years ago set up that you can elect to check off the boxes, the CH, you guys remember, it's the election to, it's the like 501CH or something like that you elect and you tell the IRS, yep, we do advocacy, and then they say, oh, okay, as long as you've told us that you're one of these groups, here are specific clear-cut limits for what you can do. And it's 20% of your first $500,000 can be put towards it, and then it's like 15% to the second $500,000. So then if you tell them for sure you're doing advocacy, then they give you very clear specific limits. So some groups have said, oh, let's be safe and know exactly. And other groups are saying, we don't even come close to that, so why raise our hand and choose that election? So that makes, so if you're 501c3, if you're doing a ton of it, and there's actually the very last page of the handout that I gave you has some information about that. Okay, so in terms of, I'm so glad you asked about your own time, about volunteering. So who can limit or prohibit you from lobbying on your own time, with your own pen and pencil and laptop and computer, or in your own home, and who can limit that?
Your spouse.
Change that spouse.
Your funds.
Sorry?
Your funds.
Right, your own personal energy and resources in the world that you live in, exactly. Your partner, your friends, you know, your other competing demands. Okay, let's go ahead to the next one then. And then, so who can limit or prohibit you from lobbying on the job?
Your employer.
Yeah, who else?
Union.
Your funder.
Funder, follow money. Federal government can limit, like we were just saying, if you're 501c3, state government can limit where your funds are coming from.
What about if you're a licensed person?
That's a good question. I don't know. Does anybody?
I'm a nurse.
They're very active. M&A is incredibly politically active. I love it.
Well, no, I'm talking about the licensure boards.
I don't know.
What
No,
are they?
there's no,
No?
it's not an issue.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you. So, okay, so let's go ahead to the next one. So again, we've already talked about this a little, about if your position is partially funded. This is so assuming that your boss, your supervisor, your employer, whoever that is, assuming this is one of your priorities, this is one of your goals to work on. You know, I'm just going to say like the Massachusetts Food Trust or the Prevention and Wellness Trust Fund. Say that they say, yeah, we definitely want to advance this, so it's fine. You know, please, if an organization or MPHA asks you to make some calls here and there, that please do. That'd be great. Your employer, your supervisor knows you're doing it. I'm assuming that that's the case. We're not assuming like, you know, you're going rogue and doing whatever you want. It needs to fit in with the organization's mission. If you're partially funded, you can lobby on that non-funded time. If you're 100% funded with federal dollars, you know, you just can't do it on the job. You would have to do it in your own time, your own computer, your own phone, etc. The other one of these other limitations comes from the state, from the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, that if you lobby 25 hours or more in a 6-month period, you just, once you get to 25 hours in 6 months, you need to be a registered lobbyist.
So is that 25 hours per person? What if you have 4 people in your organization that are lobbying?
Per person.
So theoretically, if you had 100 people lobbying, you could lobby all the time. If they did only
Half of the
25
time?
hours, yeah.
That's a very good point. And if the total value of it the
It's
total
less
value
than-
of their staff time is less than 5%
Well, the
of their
net
operating
profits
budget.
plus their staff time.
Right,
is worth
the real
nothing, right?
reason why we're all paid such
Yeah.
low rates. So I'm not a registered lobbyist. My boss, Maddie Ribble, our policy director is, our executive director, Rebecca Goertz is, and they have to file forms. It's not painful, yeah.
Does it also count with like city and local kinds of issues, or is we just talking about the state? Like if you went to your, the town, had a
City council, right.
city council had a
I
forum.
don't, anybody, you.
Well, I don't know about the 25 hours, but it does apply to all levels of government around federal funding.
Same recipe
Yeah.
if you're going to your like local officials.
Yeah.
For funding and stuff, so
For funding
Not
or
that-
specific
No,
legislation.
for
So for,
example, we had transportation was on the city docket, in Milford. It was a vote
yeah,
in the town. And so the CHNA was vocal in this.
yeah.
That was the town vote.
You know what, I am just drawing a blank, that is such a key question, I'm drawing a blank.
no, I think it's fine. It's just a question of where your funding comes from. So if you're
That's- so
federally
it's not-
funded,
yeah.
you
Well, say
can't.
it was sort of, everybody was from different organizations, so we worked for the hospital, you worked
Yeah.
for the senior center.
Yeah, I've honestly, I've been doing this with MPHA for 4 years, I've never heard of anybody having a problem about, as long as they're not doing it on their time. The other thing is, like, if you're doing it on your own time, especially these public meetings are happening in the evening, and so most of the time, a lot of times, it's just a moot issue. Like, I'm doing it as a resident of, Milford, or I'm doing it as a resident of,
You speak out as part of the organization.
and then, exactly, and then being that, if you're the chair, say, of that organization, I'm speaking on behalf, I'm the chair of that organization, or I'm the treasurer, the chair couldn't be here, they passed, my group has voted, and we want to endorse this. Yeah, Dave.
What if you're receiving DON-related funds from a hospital?
No
This
problem.
is a
I
very
don't
good
think
question.
that's not federal money, I mean, that's
Right.
what
It's
I
not
think.
federal
Right.
money.
It
Yeah.
would only apply if the
Yeah.
DON regulations prohibited it, and
But
Or
if
if you were getting money from the VA maybe, right?
Yeah.
Because that would be a federal organization.
Right.
Or as a citizens advisory board member, I had to be approved by the state. And so it's all the conflict of interest stuff, but I don't recall, I know I couldn't be lobbying.
And so those depending on, because like most of us that work in community level, state level issues, wear many hats, right? You're on a board of this, an advisory committee of that. That's where you have, the IRS isn't going to tell you if that's allowable or not. It'd probably be more the state ethics board would be, that you need to think about which hat am I wearing, and then even, exactly. So it's the conflict of interest of the board of that's where you need to, depending on when and where. Doesn't mean, it often means though that somebody else in your organization, you've shared the same opinions, like I can't speak to it because I'm on this advisory council, so that's why you need to do it. Oh, you've never done anything like this before? Let me help you. So that's, I can't do it because of this hat, but you can. Okay, so let's go on to the next slide, please. Okay, so this is kind of, so all these yes and no's and if-thens that come about, we're trying to make this a little easier. I apologize, can't read the top line, I just noticed. Oh, but you've got the handouts, right. So again, it's always follow the money, when you're trying to ask yes or no. That the voter education, helping people get registered to vote, reminding them to vote, anybody can do that regardless of who you work for, as long as your boss doesn't mind, right? So voter education and educating policymakers, providing information, providing facts, analysis, stories, photos. That's one-way communication. To anybody can do that regardless of your funding.
Andrea?
Yeah.
So if you go to your legislator and say, I want to tell you about the importance of open green space in our community, that's education, as long as you're not saying, so therefore vote for this.
Exactly. Say, here's how it affects me and my neighborhood and my coalition of 5,000 people in the city of Boston. You're not pointing to a specific piece of legislation. You're not asking something. You're just making sure they've got it in their heads. 'Cause remember, they can't all be experts on every issue, and they may have just had somebody coming in to talk to them to say, that big green open area over there, I can put in a CVS for you. I'll bring in some jobs. I'll bring it, that may have been an appointment right before you. You deserve an opportunity to say, here's how this would actually help by putting in some ball fields or a park or a whatever, it would help your community. Yeah.
So just by presenting data, you are not lobbying?
No.
And that's what precision medicine, precision planning, precision justice, that will solve the opioid crisis. Precision, which is applied informatics, gather the data, and
So
that's what
I dare say most of us don't know anything about that, particularly our elected officials. And so the education arm of it and providing information at the time with a messenger in the format that they're willing to, that's how you can be a strategic advocate and you're not lobbying. And in fact, lobbying at that point would be a waste of time, right? I don't know what you're talking about.
Right.
So to be strategic, be like, I am a resource for you, I'm trusted information, I have got a vested interest in stopping the opioid crisis, just like I know you do. Let me share some new information with you. And I'm not a wacko, I'm not crazy, you could call on me when you or your staff have questions. So, okay, so just kind of going down through that chart again. Can you partner with other people who lobby? So, like if I invite you to come to the State House with us for a meeting with your state senator, what town do you live in? Leicester. So who's one of your state reps? Do you know? Kimberly, yes. So if I said, I really need to go speak with her, can you come with me? You say, you know what, I'm 100% federally funded. And I say, that's fine. You won't be doing any lobbying, but I need to have a local constituent with me. So we go in together, we talk, you share some information about your organization, and I say, really appreciate it if you could support this line item in the budget coming up. Here's some, and then we walk out. Did you lobby? No. Did I? Yeah. Was it an insignificant part of my time over the year? Yeah, because I very, very rarely do that. But the time that I spent maybe talking with you and encouraging you to come with me, that kind of counts as grassroots lobbying. But I didn't ask you to say anything. I asked you to come with me. So that's why I just pass this on because I don't want people to be scared or intimidated if somebody asks you to come along and participate. Grassroots lobbying, if you're 100% federally funded, no, you can't do it on the clock, but of course you can do it at your own time. Can anybody help a political party or a political candidate on the job if you're a 501c3? No. That's called electioneering. And sometimes that's where actually some organizations get in trouble, is because they forget that there's a primary coming up, but they forget that there's a general election coming up, and they invite their sitting senator or governor or mayor or somebody to an event on, like October 30th, September 29th. That's starting to get pretty close. Pardon me?
Give them cookies.
Well, but the thing is, you can invite them, even if it's the day before election day, you can invite them, but what do you have to also do? Invite all their opponents, exactly. So there's no problem having them there, you just have to give equal opportunity.
That was the Saturday Night Live thing.
I missed it.
Right, no, they gave time, when they gave time to Bernie, they then had to give time to the other candidates because they got caught, they thought they were doing something great, but they got caught in this and they had to give equal time. Some turned them down, but at the time they had to give to like everybody that was running.
But that's not about lobbying.
No, but that was that fairness of public perception of it.
They're not a
Right.
nonprofit, they're not a SNL,
Right,
501c3.
right, but it was that same idea of
Comcast
being
is
able
not
to,
a
right.
Right, and WGBH. So another thing, so when the governor's race last year, 2 years ago, MPHA sent questions about public health and community health issues to all the candidates for governor. We got back from most of them, not every one of them, all the major candidates returned them, and then we shared their responses on our website. Was that lobbying?
Yeah,
It was
but
not.
you got everything.
It was not lobbying, and it was not electioneering. We were interacting with candidates, but we weren't plugging any one of them. Yeah.
Is there the thing about needing to invite everyone, elections start so early, like, is there a time period? Or is that a judgment call, just like, a month within an
Yeah.
election versus?
It's a judgment, and it totally is a judgment call, and I get the hives sooner than some people on electioneering, just because I worked with nonprofits in DC for several years, and the federal level, people really get the hives on stuff. But I would say October, early October, it starts to get sketchy.
After the summer, I would say.
After the summer.
Just like when, the campaign season starts.
After
Like,
Labor Day.
Like once all the town fairs, everybody's out, so I would say September, we start getting into,
Yeah,
interesting times.
I agree, yeah.
What we've done is, in the mayor's race a couple years ago, we did a similar thing for all the mayoral candidates. There were 9 of them. We got 5 responses. We posted them on our website. We sent out an email to all our constituents saying, these are the questions we asked, and you click here, you can see what their answers are.
Awesome.
And in other cases, we've invited each candidate individually to come and listen to us, to be educated about our issues.
What about if you do something like, if you vote yes on this, this is what your yes vote means, like the League of Women Voters does that. A yes vote means da-da-da-da-da, a no vote means da-da-da-da-da.
Education.
Yeah.
It's still, even if it's this, your own spin, your organizational spin.
The effects on public health.
Right.
And say, this is coming from United Neighbors of Fall River, here's the data, and, depending on what your reputation is already, your credibility, your history, and then maybe you're giving citations of where you got facts, or, that's where your reputation, and who knows you comes into play. So people who trust you will trust what you say. But again, that's still just education. So what about ballot questions, right? Let's go to the next slide, please. Okay, so this is called, boulderadvocacy.org is a really helpful website for various information. It's on your handout there. This is specifically refers to 501c3 public charities may legally express positions on ballot initiatives, referenda, state constitutional amendments, blah, 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 and other policies put to a direct vote of the public. So yes, you can, your CHNA, your organization, can have a public opinion on a ballot question. And note the bold italics here, but ballot questions are on the ballot, right? You go to the election booth. There's early voting this year in Massachusetts, starting October 24th. I'm so excited. October 19th is the last day to register to vote. If you're not, if you and your friends and your partners to vote October 19th, you can still do it.
Is that any state?
No, Massachusetts.
Massachusetts. Is there a different date?
I don't know.
The sun's moving.
On the League of Women Voters,
Yes.
there's a great chart, and it's very easy to navigate. It'll tell you when you have to register in each state,
Okay.
by when,
Yeah.
absentee ballots and things like
Yeah,
that.
the
Early
voting
voting
is different.
started in Iowa today, and that's why the presidential candidates are all in Iowa.
Yeah, but the early voting started somewhere else lately, right? Someplace else.
So somewhere else
Yeah,
earlier,
'cause I already heard
Ohio.
there were like 172 votes in it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's okay. So ours, the first time ever this year, early voting in Massachusetts, start October 24th. So you can take a position on ballot initiatives, but again, as long as it doesn't conflate, there's no blurring the lines that it's connected to one of the candidates for whether even if it's town council or
Aren't there
governor.
exemptions when former reality television stars are running for office? I mean, you can't get involved in that.
Check, please. Next slide, please. Ballot questions coming up this year. They're getting so much more popular in Massachusetts. They're more and more. I'm not a huge fan of them because they're very blunt policy tools. There's no debate, there's no amendments, there's no anything. It's just this very binary yes or no. So the question number 1 about the expanding a slot machine, and actually I'm not going to go into the content of any of these because I'm not an expert on the content of any of these, and also because you should have all just received in the mail your voter information from the Secretary of State. And also there's a voter, if you're not registered, and you can get some, there's a voter mail-in registration to vote. So there's information on all of these in the packet that you should have just received. Interestingly enough, it's very difficult to find a link to this online, but I put it there. I had to dig for it a little bit, but I found it. Don't ask me why. So there's four initiatives, 4 ballot questions, and it's really important to understand what does a yes vote mean or a no vote mean, because sometimes they're asked in like a double negative sort of way.
Mm-hmm.
So make sure you understand what yes means and what no means. The one we held a forum last week here in Framingham to dig deeper into the ballot initiative regarding legalizing marijuana. We had Senator Lewis, who's opposed to it. We had a couple of different pediatrician from Boston Children's Hospital who's opposed to it. We had a couple people from other entities that are working hard for it. We had Martha Biebinger moderate it from WBUR. We had a packed house. A couple people, oh yes, Ellen was there. Thank you for being there. And it's now available online on our website. If you go to our website and in the events, you'll see it. You'll click there. It's about 90 minutes. It's very interesting. It's really interesting.
If
So-
I could just mention there,
Yeah.
we have one coming up in Gloucester through a MOPC grant.
Yeah.
We've got one that, we've got a professor from the Harvard Department of Economics doing a pro side to it. We have a moderator from WBUR, and we have, I think it's somebody from MGH doing the con side to it. That's next Thursday night, if anybody is interested in that. And again, it's educationally
Right.
focused.
Showing
Even though it's funded through a MOPC grant, it's education. It's
Right.
not a
Right.
set position.
There's a lot of confusion on that one.
Yes. Yes.
Lots.
Yep.
And I'll just add, our board is, MPHA's Board of Directors is meeting tomorrow to, presumably, we've been doing a lot of work, a lot of discussion and learning on this, and they'll come out with their position, if they're gonna take a position, and what it is, that we should know that tomorrow. And I go here first and then back to David, yeah.
The Substance Abuse and Mental Health Agency has appointed a new chief medical officer, and I just attended a webinar recently, and he came out saying that in no way would the Substance Abuse and Mental Agency support marijuana, legalization of marijuana.
State, you're saying the state's come out against it.
The state,
Well, the governor's against
The
it, the Attorney
feds.
General,
Yeah.
the feds.
the
yeah.
chief
Yeah.
researchers
Um,
in the
That's what I know who's
nation,
speaking for.
medically.
I just wanted to add that on certain cities and towns have additional ballot questions.
Good point.
So for instance, in Boston, we have ballot question number 5, which is the Community Preservation Act, which is, many of you already have this. It was allowed by the state, or passed by the state in 2000, but each city and town has to approve it separately. And in Boston, it did not get approved in 2001, I think. But it's on ballot again. And that's something that it's a small surcharge on real estate tax that funds affordable housing, green space, and historic preservation. We decided to support it because we think it's good for public health.
Awesome. That's great to hear. That's actually one of the issues, and before I was in the PHA, I worked a lot on getting the Community Preservation Act passed in communities around the state. So I'm crossing my fingers for Boston. Anybody else have CPA on their local?
We need it in Hardwick.
I
The whole
know.
town is
It's already protected. It's
And-
already-
But the town voted against the
They did again.
CPA.
Okay. Do you have it coming up?
We have it.
What town?
We already have it.
Oh, you have CPA already in your community. Great. Any other ballot initiatives locally that you guys have coming up that you know of?
Greater Lowell Health Alliance are hosting the same workshop similar to it, inviting Chief Carmichael to attend and also potentially a DDA, the District Attorney of Middlesex County, to come and speak. And our organization, we kind of struggled whether to take a stand
See, you can relate, right?
on it. A lot of our members, our community partners, wanted us to oppose it, but that was just 1 or 2 organizations, and we service 11 communities. So we went to our board president, and she decided that we shouldn't take a stand on it because we can't speak for one community who's opposed against it compared to another community who's for it. So we just are going the educational route and just talking about both sides of the ballot.
I hear you.
And our workshop is next week at Will General Hospital Wednesday. So
Okay. I'm gonna make sure to get both of the communities that we mentioned too, so that we can share it on with our social
Is that
media.
on question 4?
yes, question.
And I think, like you said, there's a lot of communication about that, so if you can't make a stand, at least educating people on it, because people who, average people are misinformed, I think, on that, so maybe just.
It's been confusing.
Yeah,
It's
it
very
is confusing.
It's really confusing.
Yeah, what it actually means.
Let's just go to the next slide then.
Okay, so in terms of being an an effective advocate, what we, at MPHA, kind of what our mantra is focusing on strategic, targeted, very focused advocacy. And so instead of trying to get, 10,000 people to write letters or to sign a petition or something like that, we focus on finding people to, at the right time, get the right information, the right person, the right time, and from the right messenger. And so in order to figure out, who's the best messenger, and who's the decision maker, what is the right time, what is the appropriate information, what's too much and what's too little. So that's where the art and the science of strategic advocacy comes in, is, to do a power analysis, to first figure out who really is the decision maker here. Is it city clerk? Is it the city council and the mayor? Is it the state legislature? Is this not even a legal issue? This is more of an enforcement issue? Is this a funding issue? To really understand, so that's where your research and true understanding comes in of what is the problem. You can't just say homelessness is the problem. I mean, yes, you can say it's a problem, but that doesn't do anything to help you solve it.
Right.
Narrow it down. What is it that you want to try to change? Do you need more funding? Do you need approval to build something? Do you need change in internal policies so that maybe somebody doesn't have to be, maybe they are still managing an addiction, but you want to get them off the street, or can they have a pet? They won't come off the street unless they can have their dog with them. What are the things that are inhibiting the very specific things, and who are the decision makers that can change that? So working, doing that level of power analysis and finding out who are the right people, what piece of information do they need to know? Did they never know it? Did they forget it? Did it get outweighed by some information from somewhere else? And then when's the right time to give them that information? If we're talking about the budget, asking your legislator in July to, maybe increase some funding in the state budget, well, maybe you're either really late or you're really early.
Yeah.
But that's not a good time to do it, given the budget cycle. And same with in January, if you want somebody to co-sponsor a bill, January is the perfect time, but not the end of January, the beginning of January. So timing matters. And this is the kind of thing that, that we can help you with as well, to know when the timing are. You could spend all your time researching this stuff. You can go into a dark hole of this stuff. I don't encourage you to do that. I encourage you instead to find the organizations, the individuals, the organizations who you trust, whose values you share, and you want to participate in, strategic advocacy moments, but without having to do all of the research and legwork and stuff, because it's overwhelming. And that's what, my colleagues and I do.
Can I just plug one of those agencies? It's the Mental Health Mental Health America, MHA. We don't even have a chapter in Massachusetts.
MHA.
Mental Health America, and it's on top. I mean, the COO was on the SAMHSA
And they do advocacy
board,
work. So they're a nonprofit
and
that does
he's
advocacy
working,
work.
and they have incredible behavioral health strategies and laws and advocacy.
At the federal level.
Absolutely.
Yeah, okay.
And they have, like NAMI, they have local.
Okay.
So mounting an
Gonna go to the next
MHA
one.
here would be something that I
And there are
recommend
other-
you all try to do in your CHNA.
Thank you. So these are, and that's what something that we can talk about is when other organizations that you guys look at, other listservs, other action alerts that you like to get. And I'm going to circulate a sign-up list if folks want to get onto our alert, get our newsletter, our actions alerts. I promise we don't send way too many. Just but we really don't cry wolf. We talk very long and hard before we send out an action alert if it's because we don't want everybody to think like, oh, again. Like, no, when we send it, we really mean it. So these are our cross-cutting priorities that MPHA as an organization works with, and then these are the 5 kind of buckets that we're focusing on for this upcoming legislative session. So this summer, this fall, we're working with our policy council and our board of directors to identify specifically what will be the specific policy priorities that will, come under each of these headings. November 16th, actually, let's go to the next slide here. November 16th is our, oh, that's the next, sorry. Our annual meeting is November 16th. We'll be having breakout groups for each of those 5 buckets and asking people to come in. We'll provide some basic information, then we're going to ask, what are we missing? Who else should we be hearing from? What do you think? What else do you need to know about this topic? So it's in Worcester, November 16th. Folks want to come. Yes, so that's it's about that. The theme this year is called No Racial Justice, No Public Health is our focus on it. And then, yeah, we've got a list of things that you can do as an individual, as an organization. And, oh, you know why I kept plugging, have you registered to vote, make sure you vote. I want to just emphasize why voting in both midterm elections and special elections, it's so important, is because your elected officials, they'll never know who or what you voted for, but they can tell, they can download the information, they can tell if you vote or not regularly. Like, are you just a once every 4 years presidential election, or are you what they call a super voter, somebody who votes like pretty much every single time? And why does that matter? So when you call them, you call their office or send an email or something, they plug it in, Mary Smith, they plug it in, you pop up, oh, super voter. I'm gonna make sure I listen to her. So there's multiple reasons to be a very regular voter.
Just have a question now.
Sure.
I'm trying to connect the dots here. So, I guess regarding what your organization does related to the CHNAs, because I'm reading here that the expertise in community organizing and coalition building. So, I guess one specifically how do we connect?
Sure. So we can provide, we work with some mass in motion communities and some of the different CHNAs that we can provide some technical assistance, like that you and I could call, and like if you want to have, sometimes if you want an outside facilitator to lead a discussion so that you can be part of it and you got fresh eyes and ears, or we just strategize and we talk through how, what you might do differently, like if you're having, if everything's going well, you don't need us. There's other things we'll do. But if you feel like there's some change, there's a struggle, there's a, something new that we haven't dealt with before, let me know.
Well, because I'm just thinking, in our year ahead, we're planning for trying to have focus groups about racial justice or race and access to public health. So, is that something that you?
We're working on. We're going to actually. Mayor Curtatone is going to be on at our annual meeting. He's going to be speaking on that as well. So, I mean, we would love to. Do we have the answers on all this? No. Would we love to talk about it and talk about process and what's next? Yes, please. Yes.
Are those 5 things that you said that you focus on, like the slide before?
Yeah.
One of the big ones, I don't know, you did the thing of the healthy food access. I'm from Wick, that was great because that was directed. I got everyone to sign the thing.
Yes,
that was a good thing. Okay, we would very like to be involved in anything we might do on the environment of housing because it's popping up everywhere.
Oh my gosh.
And we see it being a huge issue. So, and particularly in our area, they're overbuilding like crazy. Stuff that no one can afford, so.
We thank you. I'm going to pass around the sign and over during lunch I'll pass around a clipboard and sign in in
So
March.
that topic is
Yeah,
important to us in
exactly.
addition to the food.
And that's where also coming at our annual meeting, we will be doing also a survey, an electronic survey, so if you can't come to the annual meeting, we'll be doing a survey so you can.
Will we get an invitation to that annual?
If you sign up on my club,
Okay.
absolutely. If you're already on our.
Not that I feel
mailing
like Roger's
Yeah.
listed, okay?
And then last slide has just got my contact information, folks, at one top. So I'm gonna, pass out.
Go pass.
I'm gonna pass out. I can ask, I know we were gonna shift to lunch here, but I'm gonna pass this yellow sheet is an action step that you can take. It's for the Prevention and Wellness Trust Fund. Several communities, 9 communities around the state are very active in it. It sunsets, the funding sunsets in June. We're working to continue and hopefully expand it so that more communities would be able to access this program. So there's some brief information about it. And on the back of it, if you're the head of your organization, or you're willing to share this with the head of your organization, the chair, whatever, you can sign it, get it back to us, or do it online.
So is this grassroots lobbying?
Yes, it is. From me to you, from you to them, exactly. Yep, I'm gonna check out 30 seconds.
Great, thank you, Andrea.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.